Okay, I'm going to get kind of blunt here, okay? I don't get blunt in order to be, mean-spirited or be, abrasive or anything like that. I've had problems with that in the past. I'm working on it. But the first thing that I would say is that I genuinely, and I'm not being satirical when I say this, but I find it really odd that anybody in the spirit in the spirit of the age would ever talk about incest as being a bad thing. Let me explain myself. Because these are the same people who will then turn around and say things such as, love is love, you do you, live and let live. They'll quote, they may not quote Crowley specifically, but they're going to live by it. Do what you will, for that is the whole of the law. Okay? If the spirit of the age is really serious about love is love, you do you, etc., and that's the definition of love rather than how God defines love in 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, doesn't envy, does not proud, doesn't boast, protects, perseveres, etc. Well, then why do we look down on such people who enter into such a relationship with full consent and full knowledge? From what I've been able to pick up, there are five, I'm going to call them the five pillars of the sexual revolution. You have love, consent, fairness, genetics. I've heard people use the genetics argument. Maybe I'm just genetically disposed towards this person or that person. And anyone who disagrees with me is a bigot. Well, okay, isn't that what we're told when we talk about other issues of the day? So I don't understand why those five pillars only apply to some areas of the sexual revolution and not to others. Number two, for those who are victims of this crime, and let's remember that if memory serves, I think rape is one of like the 5 or 6 crimes described in the Old Testament law, in the Torah, that's punishable by the death penalty, okay? But we need to show true and tangible compassion to those who have been the victim of this, okay? We need to tell them that what happened to them is wrong, that the one who did this to them needs to be at best incarcerated for the rest of their lives. At worst, I could think of other things to do. I'm not going to go there. But I also wonder to myself how much our society genuinely and honestly cares about the victim. Somebody once said that if we're kind to the cruel, we end up being cruel to the kind. I don't know. I read lots of stories. I don't know how many of them are true, but I read a lot of stories about real criminals being treated with more respect than the victims themselves. So if this evil act actually happened, we need to push for the justice system to exact justice upon the one who did the crime, while at the same time showing ways to be able to help the woman who is now a mother be able to take care of being able to take care of the child. Which brings me to the third thing. Why are we punishing the innocent for the sins of the guilty? I know this is easier said than done. Again, I've said that at the beginning. I'm going to continue saying that. But what exactly is it that the kid did? And besides, if we're going to take that line of reasoning, if we're going to say that abortion should be allowed in the case of let's say the heinous crime of rape, well, what do we do with a person who is 24 years old and was conceived as a result of rape? Are we going to apply the same logic to them? And is it going to be okay to kill them? I think we're going down a very dangerous path when we make exceptions, as difficult as they are. I'm not taking away from that. But we need to be brutally realistic. We're talking about an innocent person here. And we shouldn't be punishing the innocent for the sins of the guilty. As for the life of the mother, I think this is a red herring a bit. Because, first of all, I seem to remember a few medical doctors say for the record that they have never, ever encountered a circumstance where a medical abortion was necessary in order to save the life of the mother. But even if that's true, the doctor is not doing this in order to kill a life. He's doing it to save a life, okay? Consider the following scenario. You're out on a boat in the middle of the lake enjoying yourself. And off to this direction, you hear a splash and a man is drowning. He's crying, help, help, I can't swim. At that same moment over here, you hear another splash. Another man, help, help, I'm drowning, I can't swim. You make the decision, you go rescue one of them. Are you then guilty of murdering the other? You're not. You acted to save life, not to intentionally take it. So when it comes to the life of the mother, I don't see, again, I don't think that it's ever medically necessary based on the little bit that I've heard. People are more than welcome to correct me if that's the case. But even in a case like that, the doctor is not acting to intentionally take an innocent life. He's acting to save a life. And I would also argue that the rape and incest argument is also a bit of a red herring. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the overall conversation. First of all, the most liberal left-wing pro-abortion polls that I have ever seen in my life have suggested that at the absolute most, I mean, we're talking the ceiling here of what I've seen, 10% of abortions are performed in those three cases: the mother of the life, rape, and incest. So what about the other 90%? The other 90% are being done pretty much for social birth control or convenience reasons, aren't they? So why are we bringing up the 10% in order to justify the 90% in this particular case, for reasons that are far less noble and worthy than those three reasons? The other thing that I'll say about the rape and incest argument, I remember a commentator online about a couple of years ago made this point. If you run across somebody who tries to use those three things as a justification for keeping abortion legal, ask them this following scenario. Suppose I took your side in keeping abortion legal under those three specific instances. Despite the fact that I abhor abortion, I'll take your side in keeping abortion legal in those three specific instances if you will take my side in banning abortions for all the other reasons, for all the social birth control and convenience reasons. Would you take that deal or not? If that person says yes, congratulate them, because at least they're being consistent. But I'll wager you any amount of money that the vast majority of those who advocate for abortion would not take you up on that deal. And why? Because when you get right down to it, it has nothing, it barely, if anything, has to do with rape, incest, or the life of the mother. They just want people, men and women, to have the right to kill their kid for any reason that they want. They have fallen for the lie that if they abort their kid, they can have the world on a platter. So see what happens if you ask that question to someone. You might run across someone who is honest about this. I'm not saying that that's a deal that I would ever take, but if I run across someone like that, at least I'll know that they're more honest than the vast majority of the pro-abortion folks out there.